So one morning I walked into my acting class, and there was a quote on the blackboard that I've never forgotten. It said, "Some people tiptoe through life so they may arrive at death safely." Some people tiptoe through life so they may arrive at death safely. Think about that. It took me, I remember it because it made me think, how boldly do I live my life? How much am I protecting myself all of the time from the present moment, from what's happening, and how much am I willing to trust my cape and just fly at every moment? Part of boldness is not knowing how something's going to turn out. If we know how something's going to turn out, then we're being very cautious, and I'll only step out when I know what the results are going to be. Being bold is, I don't know what the results are going to be. And that's very much where we are in our world today as well. As I mentioned, next year is our election year. We don't know how that's going to turn out. I hear people theorizing, but we don't know. And what we do know is that our country has been in a very divisive energy. And in fact, I think people feel there's more at stake now, or recognize there's more at stake now than 4 years ago. People can say, well, I'm not going to watch the news, I'm not going to pay attention. It doesn't matter. It's in the psychic energy and the field in which we're operating. So it's impacting us, whether we're conscious of it or not, this energy of divisiveness. And so the question I've been asking myself is, how am I going to be in the next year? What does being bold in this time look like? The first person that actually came to my mind actually was very, kid-like. His name is Dr. Dean Brown. Actually, he's transitioned to the other side. He was my professor. This was in the 90s, about 20 years ago. When I was in ministerial school, we had an accredited distance learning program, which meant that we had professors from different universities all over the country. And he was a physicist who has an incredible resume, worked at DuPont, worked with Albert Einstein, just a brilliant man. And he was in our curriculum teaching cosmology. And he lived from this very big state. Some of you who've had classes with me have had the benefit of some of his assignments that he gave. Write what life was like back at the Big Bang. Write what life was like 30,000 years from now. He lived in this vastness. And he was interested in everything. He loved poetry. He taught himself Sanskrit so he could read the Hindu scriptures directly. I mean, his mind was amazing, and his heart and his just beingness was alive, and which is why I remember him so well. So I had the opportunity to go to the colloquium. The colloquium was where all the new students came to meet the distance learning professors would come for the weekend to introduce themselves to the new students. However, I was now a senior, and the dean asked if I would stand in for her, so I got to go again, having now taken all the classes, and I just had a blast. And he was there, and so there's 3 things that I remember, and it's amazing, it's been 20 years, and he's the only one I remember. I think it's because of that vibration of the vastness, the joy, the freedom which he lived. Reverend Nirvana Gale, who was also a dean at the ministerial school, was just about to speak in the main room. And I was heading towards there, and Dr. Dean Brown was leaving. And I said, "Oh, you're going to miss Reverend Nirvana?" He goes, "Oh, I heard a little bit from him earlier, and, it's fine. He's just not my cup of tea." And I said, No. Being my arrogant, early 30-year-old talking to this person of vast wisdom, I said, I get it. I get why you might not like him, because if you're coming from a linear place, sort of, you have a thesis, and you're not going to hear him. But I said, I had to learn how to listen differently. I had to listen from my heart and my body. And when I listen from my heart and my body, he's so profound, and you're just going to love him. And he said, "Oh, okay." And he turned around and went in. And he became Nirvana's biggest fan, went to all of his things. He just fell in love with him. But what stuck with me was the fact that he, in that moment, turned around and went in. He could have said, and as others have said, "Look, I know who I am. I've been on this planet a lot longer than you have. I have way more experience than you have, and inwardly, and I'm way smarter than you are. I don't need to listen to this. I know who I am, and just go to your room and follow who you have always been." He was in his 70s, and in a moment he said, "Okay, I'll try something new." And it was okay if he didn't like them either. The point is the answer was yes. I will try something new. I will try listening from a different place. I will try a different way of understanding. And it expanded him for doing that. And I thought, what freedom of being. To me, that was a bold moment. It was a bold moment that he didn't have to hold on to an old idea of himself and allow this brand new self to emerge. That's bold living, where we don't have to hold on, where you trust these cosmos. I remember then we were having lunch, and I was talking about, I had just seen the movie Dangerous Beauty, and I love the movie Dangerous Beauty, and he hadn't seen a movie in 30 years. I asked him what he did for a good time, and he said, there's nothing like a good physics book. So I was explaining to him, he said, but he really wanted to know, why did you like Dangerous Beauty? And so I was telling him, and the thing I remember most was how intently he was listening to me. He wasn't listening. I wasn't trying to convince him to now go see movies. I wasn't trying to convince him of anything, and he didn't have any agenda in his listening. He was just genuinely interested in why this particular movie moved me. And the thing I remember most was how closely he was listening to me without any agenda. He was just trying to understand. Being bold doesn't mean we just talk over people. Being bold doesn't mean we're afraid to hear what other people have to say. Being bold is not shutting down. And then lastly, I went to go hear him lecture. And already, because I had taken his class, I knew pretty much where he was coming from. And I don't remember anything of what he said except for one phrase. He was talking about something, and then he said, imagine a speaker saying this to you. He said to the whole room, so you know that experience that we've all had when you experience the entire past, so back to the Big Bang and thousands of years and all the way into the future, and you experience it all in that moment. You know when you've had that experience? And then he went on and talked. I have no idea what he said because I was sort of lost in, no, I've never had that experience. And it seems odd that you think I have. So I went up to him afterwards and I said, I've never had that experience. And I say it sort of with a little smirk on my face because he's going to say, well, of course you haven't. You have your experiences, I have my experiences. But instead he looked at me incredulously and he said, you haven't? Well, why not? Demand it of the universe. It's your right. And I was so struck by his absolute confidence in what was possible, in the smallness of my belief and in the vastness of his belief. He lived in the cosmos. He knows, as we all know, that we are made of star stuff. We are made from the vastness of the infinite oceanic space and time and beyond space and time of the universe, of every moment of every day. Do we live from that place? I was experiencing someone who actually lived from that vastness every single day in that incredible openness and availability to all that life is, to all that he was, to all every communication was. How bold do we live our lives? How much are we willing to live from the vastness of the truth of that identity, of that oneness with all beingness? We heard in the reading today with Joel Goldsmith, there is only one power, one source. It is everything. It includes all time, not just time on this world Earth, but the galaxies upon galaxies and the multi-dimensions of time, all space, all the multi-dimensions of space, and beyond all that. It's beyond what we can humanly conceive, and yet that is what we are made of. And that, when we have the choice, make the choice, can live from that every single day. What does it mean to live a bold life today in our world? Then we bring all that vastness. What does that mean for us? I had a moment of practicing this boldness on Friday. Friday's All Saints' Day. It was a day that Jack, 17 years ago, brought me these beautiful roses. It's a wonderful love story, and it's become much more alive with me ever since the aneurysm and the intimacy that I experienced, both on the other side of the veil and then afterwards in the hospital with Jack. Just this incredible intimacy. So I really felt the desire to share the story. Now, it's been a long time since I shared the story, but I used to share the story. And when I shared the story, if you don't know it, it's on Facebook. So you have to be my Facebook friend. No, just kidding. When I've told the story in the past, I've been more generic. The divine presence, the divine one. When in fact, I was journaling to Jesus Christ for me personally, in the privacy of my own home. I have never said that out loud. We've been married 17 years, I've told that story many times, never saying that. And so as I was writing the story, I thought, well, using that phrase, Jesus Christ, I can in 2 words, offend a whole bunch of people. I can offend maybe atheists, or 4 groups of people, atheists maybe. People who are more traditional Christian, who feel like I'm not really a traditional Christian, so I shouldn't be speaking that way. New Thought people who tend to refer to Jesus as Jesus the Christ, because in actuality there's the Christ principle and Jesus as an individual expression of the Christ principle, but he wasn't the totality. So I understand that. So in New Thought they say Jesus the Christ. And then I have many friends who are Jewish. And so I thought, man, but in the past I wouldn't have said it. I would have diluted it. And so I thought, what this experience has been for me since September is just intimacy. That's the word that keeps coming to me. That was to express. And I thought, I want to see what it's like if I just am authentic to my own intimate experience that I am privately out into the world. So I shared the story, and to my surprise, and by the way, it's a long story with no pictures, so I actually didn't think that many people were going to read it, because I have been surprised. Don't put pictures. But they have, and so many people. I've had people who are in the New Thought world, people who are very traditional Christians, and many of my Jewish friends who have shared their enjoyment of the story. And that was just this moment of, wow, I can be my authentic self. I can be bold in who I am and not offend other people, because that was my greatest concern, is that by being my authentic self, by expressing authentically who I am, that I was going to hurt other people. And I found I didn't, that the responses... Now, if I did offend people, they probably aren't telling me, but I hit enough of those different groups that I at least didn't offend some people in each of the groups, which was revelation to me. Spiritually motivated leadership. We live in a divisive time. One of the places where I've been learning to communicate has been the Ministers Listserv. I've talked about it before. It's a Google group of CSL ministers, and just CSL ministers. And I've been on it for almost 20 years now. And it's been an incredible process and evolution. Because I think before the internet, we all lived in our own little worlds, in our own little spiritual centers, and we tended to agree with the people in our spiritual centers, and we just assumed everybody else agreed with us. And what happened on the Ministers Listserv is we all got on this platform and realized we had a lot of different interpretations of what oneness meant. And what happened, and how to be as an organization from this place of oneness. So there was a lot of very angry, hurt, volatile expressions during the learning years of how to communicate. And I think mostly it surprised people, because what happened was they were finding their colleagues didn't necessarily agree with what they did. So the first reaction, remember, these are ministers who are committed their life to serving one power, one presence, and to leadership. And so I think it threw a lot of us. But we had to learn, how do we communicate? We have to listen. I was talking about Dean Brown, listening, just that openness. Hearing people, giving them the right, that what we've learned about in romantic relationships, any relationships, is everyone has a right to their feelings. We may disagree with the outcome, but everyone has a right to their feelings. And so we listen and we hear. What has evolved on the Ministers Listserv, what we are now, is unbelievably beautiful. The level of communication, the respectful communication, the kind communication, it has not happened overnight, but it has been a learning process. I am sharing all of that with you because we have this thing called social media. We are in a divisive time. Now, the one way is just to not participate, and that's fine. But I always find social media interesting because we find sometimes what people really think that we don't see in real life. For instance, one person that I know through being a mom, we get along great. I've always got along great with him. He's the nicest guy, kindest heart, talked all the time. There was a sporting event, we talk away. And then on the Facebook page just this anger and this rage and it shocked me. It was like it wasn't the same person. And I didn't know how to be with it, and it's starting up again. The reason why it's all coming up, because I'm noticing some of the divisiveness is beginning. I think people are feeling the pressure, and I think it's going to just increase as we get near the election day, the anger and the frustration. And so I could just not follow him. But I've been with, how can I be with this? What does it mean to be bold? Does it mean, well, I have to fight with him? Do I have to argue with him? Do I need to shout him down on internet? Well, I've already learned that doesn't work. How can I be with him? Well, first of all, what we learn in relationships is accept people where they are. So any communication I have with him is not to change him to agree with me. To be bold means I need to be bold that I know that we are one regardless of whether we agree or not, and that he has the right to be who he is. We say every week everyone has the freedom to be unique, that we are all unique, and then we get nervous when people's uniqueness bumps up against my uniqueness. So how do I be with him? I recognize that we are one, and he is part of me whether I like it or not, or whether I feel comfortable with it or not. We're one. To me, there's nothing more bold than to say and to claim, no matter what's happening, we are one. And believe me, that makes my heart palpitate. I get nervous because it's one thing to think it, but then to start saying it out loud. And of course, different people have their followers. So when he puts something out, he gets a lot of people going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was so afraid to say something because I thought, oh no, they're all going to attack me now, and I don't want to be attacked. And I don't want to attack him, but I'm just trying to find a common ground. And so I just started talking about loving your enemies. And, I know you love me, and I love you. We're one. Does this mean that you hate me when you put these things? Because I don't hate you. We do have different points of view. And the whole tone started shifting. And he started liking my pictures more. Because what I learned from that statement, being bold on Friday, what concerned me was the name Jesus Christ was going to cause separation and division and pain. And that's the last thing I want to create. But what everyone tapped into was the love behind the post. The post wasn't about Jesus Christ, my own particular path to knowing oneness. The key was the oneness, the love that it was about. People responded to the love. And so when we look about being bold, every one of us is unique, and we want to be bold in our expression, but to recognize we are unique as an expression of love. As an expression of love. As an expression of love. And people who disagree with us, we may not see the love, but they are an expression of love too. And to say that out loud, that's my commitment as I've asked myself how to be bold, is to actually say out loud, not just in my head, I know we are one. I know that doesn't mean, and I hear what you're saying. Doesn't mean I agree with you. Doesn't mean we're gonna have this dialogue where suddenly we all agree at the end. Although I will say, the more we came from that place on the ministers' listserv, there's still difference of opinions, but the degrees aren't so far. They're not so far away. They've come closer and closer. There's an understanding and a depth. So I don't know we won't change what people say, but it'll become softer. And I think we need a little softness now. This divisiveness is so full of anger and hatred. If we can bring a little bit more gentleness. So it's an interesting thing that boldness can bring about greater gentleness, greater softness of being. Because the boldness, when it's coming from love, spiritually motivated leadership motivated by oneness, by love. And that oneness that recognizes diversity, but always goes back to the diversity is an expression of the oneness, of the love. To be bold. So I'm inviting you to be in this question with me, because this is all for us individually, as a spiritual community. What does it ask of us? As we see, I actually don't ask too many people what their political views are. Maybe we have differences of political view, maybe we don't. How do we be with that with each other in the Livermore community, in the Tri-Valley, Bay Area, country, and in the world? How do we be with our differences of opinion and absolutely be anchored in our oneness and wholeness of spirit? What does that mean for you to be bold? What is it going to be for you to be in your family and be bold? To be in your workplace and to be bold? To be in your social media community and to be bold? What does it mean to be bold just walking down the street someday and having a conversation? This energy is everywhere. What is needed from those of us who are becoming more and more every day, every minute of every day, more conscious of who and what we really are, is to speak up from and as this oneness. We are needed to speak from this place of absolute, unconditional, unlimited love that knows no boundaries, that knows no division, that knows no walls, that knows no borders, that knows no other. Everyone is a part of me. Everyone is a part of you. There is no other. I read a lot about the Civil War. My dad loved history, and we went to visit battlefields. So when I was a kid, I read a lot of historical fiction about the Civil War. And the thing that I remember so much, because I couldn't understand it, they would say families would get divided, brother against brother, cousin against cousin. I'm like, how could that possibly be? I even saw a play about it. I'm like, and you get to know the characters. I'm like, how can they not? But I also noticed, as I was thinking as an adult, never once as a kid did I ever think the Confederates had any reality. They were just sort of this other group. I had anyone who was real was part of my side, the Union side. And I thought, well, why would anyone who's a real human being would be on the human side, would be on the Union side. And so the Confederates, they just didn't exist in my reality. They weren't people. They were so much other. They were so other that they didn't have any existence or reality. The deepest work we can do is to hear people speak violence, to speak words of values that are against the very core of what I'm about, and to go even deeper below that and say, and yet, the divine presence is right where they are. Because that's the only place that's going to ever bring healing, not just to this next year, but to our planet. If we are serious about being spiritual warriors on this planet Earth, we need to continually return, and that means daily spiritual practices, to the oneness and union of pure spirit at the center of our being. And every time we're triggered, it's a wonderful opportunity to go within. As Joel Goldsmith said, this is a mental exercise that we do every day until one day it just moves into our heart and until it becomes a living experience for our life. Be bold, Lighthouse community. Be bold. Let's pray. And the great thing about this one power and this one presence is we don't need to make it happen. I can say all the words in the world and it already exists, whether I speak it out or not. It doesn't come and it doesn't go. It is never birthed and it never dies. It is always already whole, perfect, and complete. It is absolutely impossible to add anything to this infinite oceanic presence. It is completely full and abundant. All of its needs met in every moment of every day. There is no separation between it and who and what we are. There's no one that could ever take who we really are away from us. That is an impossibility. No one can take anything from us, and no one can add anything to us. There is only this one power, this one presence. It is who we are right here and right now. So I'm going to ask us just to breathe in this, to just be in the stillness of this one power and this one presence. There, in fact, is no neighbors to our right and to our left. There is only this one power and this one presence. There is only one. And as we feel this one power and one presence, We recognize any divisiveness within ourselves, any battles and wars that we are fighting internally. And we don't try to fix those wars right now. Right now, we're just going to see in the midst of those battles, whether it's a battle to change habits, whether it's a battle of I should be a different person, or I should have said something different, or I should be a different person, whatever those battles look like, that we just bring the consciousness of the oneness of the presence of pure spirit into the midst of them. We start opening into a both and consciousness. An all and. We allow the walls and the divisions to dissolve within us internally. Anything that says other inside of us, something we don't like about ourselves and feels like other, we just let it dissolve. Any parts of ourself that we really dislike, we allow our resistance to it to dissolve. One power, one presence. It includes all that we are right here and right now. It is the loving marriage of all seeming opposites. Any place where we feel other, inside, and as we open our eyes or imaginary eyes and look externally, any place where we see other, right now, let's just hold oneness. Think of those beings, those people, those organizations, anything that feels like other, and just hold in our heart the consciousness of oneness. Just make sure you continue to breathe into your heart. Behind all that fighting, there is such a deep sadness of separation, of grief, unconscious most of the time. But we can feel it now. We are conscious. We are that healing energy right here and right now. And each and every one of us, because we know who we are, because we know what this planet is made in the image and likeness of pure spirit, that it has never been anything other than pure spirit, we become the bold spiritual leaders that is needed. We are being called forth even now. We are those bold spiritual leaders right here and right now, calling forth the awareness in conversations, in our own head when we hear divisiveness. Yes, and there's one power and one presence. I acknowledge the difference of opinion. I hear it, and there's validity, and there's one power and there's one presence. I am you and you are me. And in this divine presence, we are absolutely free. We are the healers and the revealers. We are those bold spiritual warriors out into the world. We are being called right here and right now. What is your answer? Let your life be your answer. For all of the good that the divine presence is all of the time, as each and every one of us, giving to each of us exactly what we need for our own evolution and growth, I just say thank you, infinite love intelligence of this universe. I trust it. I trust you with my whole heart, body, mind, and soul, knowing that as we listen and follow and open and are willing to expand and become new, things that we can't even imagine are happening. The divine presence is on the field, and miracles are happening right here and right now as all of us. Thank you, God. In deep abiding gratitude and humility and grace, we let this word be now. And we say together, and so it is.
And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Amen. 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 And so it is. Amen.
And amen.